And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places, where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But other fell into good ground, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, and some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear.
Last of all, consider the sower. That's the title of the sermon, Consider the Sower. And I'm almost done, but if you would, go over to Philippians chapter 4. Because we talked about the 4 grounds, and there's a lot of application can be made there. And if you want to be a fruitful Christian, really, who's the most fruitful person in this story? It's not the good ground at the end. That is very fruitful, but it's the sower. That's the person who's bringing forth the most fruit. Consider the sower the most fruitful of all. All that good, because remember, why did the good ground bring forth fruit to begin with? Because the sower sowed the seed. If that guy had never come by and sowed that seed, that there would have been no fruit. No, but it would have been good ground, lots of potential, but nothing would have happened with it. It would have been a waste. Look at, did I have you go to Philippians chapter 4? Look at verse 15. Now ye Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, when I departed from Macedonia, no church communicated with me as concerning giving and receiving, but ye only. For even in Thessalonica ye sent once and again unto my necessity, not because I desire a gift, but I desire fruit that may abound to your account. So Paul's writing, and he's telling the Philippians that when he was going out and preaching, when he left Macedonia, that no church communicated. And he's not talking about the fact that nobody, messaged him on, Facebook or something. He's talking about the fact that, communication, talking about giving money, supporting financially. He's saying, look, I went out and no church communicated with me as concerning giving and receiving. He kind of went out, didn't have any financial support. But ye only, so the Philippians did support him. For in Thessalonica, ye sent once and again unto my necessity. He said, I had these needs that every person has, food, raiment, so on and so forth. And they took care of that need for him. And he wanted that not because he desired a gift, not just because he wanted to just have that need met, but because, why? I desire fruit that it may abound to your account. So what this is showing us here is that even through just the giving that the Philippians did to Paul, who was an evangelist, a missionary, who went out and preached the gospel, because they supported him, they were going to get credited. The Philippians were actually going to have fruit to their account. They were going to get some credit for the works that Paul was able to do. And that's what he's teaching there. The good ground owes its fruit to the sower. Maybe these other reasons aren't enough to motivate you, but maybe they are. Maybe you decide, I do want to be a fruitful Christian. The best thing you can do is be a sower. Go out and sow the seed. Get out there and preach the gospel. And I know a lot of people in here do, but I'm not so ignorant as to think that there aren't people in here that don't go soul winning, that don't preach the gospel. That's the big vision of this church. Is that map over there, shading that orange. And that's not just, filling in spaces. That represents going out and preaching the gospel to people. Again, we have very ideal conditions to grow and be fruitful Christians here at Faithful Word. Are we taking advantage of it? If we want to do that, we have great opportunity to go out and do that. There's materials we can just take and go out. You say, I've never done it. Well, you know what? There's just dozens of people around that would be more than happy to just take you out as a silent partner. No pressure. You could just do it, as long as you want it as a silent partner and just learn the ropes. That's how I did when I got here. I showed up. I wanted to go soul winning. And I would go out, and I went out for, a few months, I think, weeks or months, where I just, listen to what was said, listen to the preaching, mark my Bible. And it gets to the point where you're ready to just push the other guy out of the way and start doing the talking. But you don't have to. The point I'm trying to make is that we have ideal conditions here. We could be very fruitful if we have the right priorities in our lives. So as 2020 comes to a close, reflect on the fruit in your life. What do you have to show spiritually for 2020? And, some very sobering words were spoken from the pulpit this last, I think it was very recently, about the coming year. And I agree with them. The fact that it's probably not going to be better in all likelihood. Now, hopefully it is. Hopefully, everyone's dead wrong about that. And 2021, somehow, on December 31st at the stroke of midnight, everything just changes and coronavirus disappears and people burn their masks or throw them away or whatever. And all the politicians straight up for us. And that would be great, wouldn't it? And you hear, I heard this in an advertisement somewhere, like a convenience store or something, where someone was on the radio saying, like, who else is ready for 2020 to be over? Oh, 2021's right around the corner. I'm thinking, nothing's going to change. What do you think's going to happen? But look, whatever lies ahead in 2021, you can still bear fruit spiritually. You can still be a fruitful Christian. It's not like, some government mandate is going to hold you back from being a fruitful Christian in your life, from bearing fruit for the Lord. If you'll patiently do the work of keeping the word in a good and honest heart. Maybe things have to slow down. Maybe things have to pull back, whatever. Maybe even your own personal circumstances. Here's some things you could do in 2021. Because we're talking about bearing fruit, right? Considering the sower, being a kind of like a spiritual gardener this morning. Maybe you just need to sharpen the gardening tools a little bit. Think about that. Are the tools sharp? Are we going to go out and try to, get the hoe out and try to, make a furrow in the ground? If you have a sharp point on that, it's going to work a lot better. Have you ever had a shovel that gets the, like a spade where the tip kind of bends over from a rock? That's hard to dig with. Maybe it's time to get out the file and kind of sharpen that thing up, put a point on it. Read and memorize the Bible. That's going to make you a fruitful Christian. You say, I want to be more fruitful. I want to bear more fruit in my Christian life in this coming year. Read and memorize the Bible. That's going to sharpen you up. How about weed the ground you have? Get the sin and the distractions out of our lives. I think that, that's a big one, especially in the world that we live in today. There's so many things that are just competing for our time, smartphones, internet, mainly that's it, right? Social media, all those things that we can just waste hours, on. Get that distraction out maybe this year. Maybe you just limit myself to some screen time and weed the ground that you have. Make sure there aren't things growing up that are going to choke out the fruit that you could have in your life. So that's my message. Consider the sower and determine to become one if you haven't already. And maybe you're here this morning and say, what, I'm already doing that. Well, determine to remain one in 2020 and sharpen the tools, because we want to be fruitful Christians. We only got one chance. We only got so much ground to grow and bear the fruit that we're going to bear. It's important that we have the right priorities. It's important that we, make sure that we're making the most use of that ground to be as fruitful as we can.